we can't do this. One of the primary benefits of being a member of the pack is advance notice on station events, and the assembled Little Fox know a little bit about that. You get first crack at our superstars and events that outsiders don't get. That's why the assembled are here today. We have a whole station of hosts, and he'll be a little embarrassed, but he's my favorite. He is a 3-time Project Censored Award-winning New York Times best-selling author, a former psychotherapist. He's a lay scholar of the history and textual analysis of the United States Constitution. I don't even know what that means.
Just made it up.
He used to be a country music DJ. He's an expert on ADD and ADHD.
And a rock
kids.
and roll DJ.
And he was a rock and roll DJ. He was a Vietnam War protester. He effortlessly glides from discussions on peak oil to impeachment to the war in Iraq and the Crusades and the Vikings and conflicts like I mentioned before. I don't even know what those things are. He has the Dalai Lama and Leonardo DiCaprio on his speed dial, but he really is a champion for the radical middle. He's a champion for the majority, and that is us. He hosts a local show in Portland and then has the cojones to stay on the air for 3 more hours on the Air America Network. The 9 to noon host on the Quake, Thom Hartmann.
Hi. Thank you.
There's a wrestler. If you know anything about pro wrestling, there's a guy named Bret Hart who they call him the Hitman, and you have some fan pages that are calling you Thom the Hitman Hartmann.
You're kidding.
It's pretty awesome.
I thought I was reasonably polite.
All right, John Scott, let's get ready to go here.
No.
We'll throw a chair or something, maybe. You have some Bay Area history. Tell us about your time here.
Oh, I spent a summer here in the summer of '68. Lived down on Fell Street off Haight, or is it off Ashbury? It's one or the other. In an apartment, in a building where we had a big sheet hanging out in front that said rent strike, so none of us paid any rent for the 7 months that I was there, which was really just a good excuse not to pay rent. And it was a marvelous summer, and I've been back many, many times on business and whatnot. But
you describe your values.
It was a wild year to be here as a teenager.
You describe your values, your slogan sort of, as uncommon sense from the radical middle. Explain what that means.
But just the phrase radical middle, we actually gave a lot of thought to that. And the idea was that frankly, the majority of Americans are where we're at. They would like to have a national health care system. They'd like to know that the water is drinkable and they're not going to get cancer from their food. They'd like to know that their drugs are safe and that they're not being hustled by the pharmaceutical companies or docs who are being paid off under the table. The list goes on and on and on. And what's amazing is whenever you talk about these things in the corporate media, you are immediately labeled as a leftist. And I just find that really weird. It just, the leftists, my grandfather was a leftist. My dad's father was a socialist. Back when being a socialist meant that you supported the Bolshevik Revolution and what Stalin was doing. Mistakenly, we're talking the 1920s and 1930s here. But that's if you want to say the left, I'm sorry, most of the left is like not here anymore. There are a few stalwart members of the Communist Party still around. In fact, once a year I get the guy who's the chairman of the CPUSA on the program and say, let's talk about the real left, and he says, yes, the government should own all the means of distribution and production, and it just struck me that even though we're characterized by the corporate media as being the left, in fact, we're really representative of the vast majority of America and of the historic ideals of this country. So I think we're the middle. First of all, and I think that all these people who describe themselves as centrists are really right-wingers, and the people who call themselves right-wingers are Reich-wingers. And I think that the vast majority of us are starting to get pretty pissed off, frankly, and that's a radicalizing experience, and that's why I say the radical middle.
The Progressive News Hour live at the Little Fox Theater in Redwood City this afternoon on 960 The Quake. And there was a very eloquent description of most of us, so why has progressive radio had such a fight?
Well, that's a good question. I think a lot of it, and this is a business that you and I know, and without doing too much inside radio, inside baseball kind of stuff, the fact of the matter is that this industry that we're in is really a very, very conservative industry, and I mean that in small c, the old-fashioned sense of the meaning in terms of, move slowly. Program directors are, if things are going okay, the last thing they want to do is change things. And if something works, then you go with it. And people are very wary of trying new things. When conservative talk radio came along in 1987, with Limbaugh, it really struggled for a couple of years to get on and to establish any kind of listenership. But there was a listenership out there for it. They were able to establish it. And so eventually people started buying into it and saying, okay, this is cool, we can do this. But the idea of liberal talk radio hadn't occurred to them. They thought that talk radio was conservative talk radio, and it just kind of stuck for a long time until Air America Radio came along and said, no, there's the other side out there that wants to be heard. I frankly think it's just a matter of inertia. I know that there are elaborate conspiracy theories, and I actually, at various times over the years, have bought into them, and that corporate media in America doesn't want progressive messages out and things like that. And frankly, I think that there is some of that going on. There are some folks who would sabotage this and probably have. But the bottom line ultimately is most of the media in America is run as a business, and they want to make a living.
And the business people have this thing, and this is not too inside baseball, I hope. It's called the no-buy list. There are major corporations who will not buy conservative, too, and progressive radio.
There's about 100 companies on the Air America no-buy list, and there's about 100 companies on the Rush Limbaugh no-buy list. This is, people think it's some huge conspiracy. It's not. It's just companies that don't want to be controversial. They just want to sell lipstick or whatever. They just, exactly. It's really not. And I think that progressive talk radio is very much in its infancy. I've been doing my program for 4 years. Air America's been on the air for 3 years. The Quake's been here for a couple of years. And we're at that early stage that Limbaugh was at in 89, 90. And really very much, the biggest challenge is finding advertisers and convincing them that there really are listeners out there. And that's why it's important that if you listen and you hear an advertiser who has a product that you would be interested in, that you let them know that you're listening. That's sort of the equivalent of doing the pledge drive on public radio, is saying, yes, I'm here, I'm part of this.
And this is kind of what the PAC is about, our Progressive Action Coalition. I use the term close the circle.
Yeah. But you're not going to sell my email address, are you?
I am not.
Okay, thank you.
I am not.
Good.
I'm not going to sell anybody's.
Yeah.
What happens is we do our thing. We have people and advertisers that support us. You support the advertisers that support us. The circle is closed.
Yeah.
And that's how we can keep it viable. So if we use your timeline, we're not done. We're just getting started.
No, and we really are. We really are. Yeah.
Say something good about the Republican Party.
When it was started in 1856, in June of 1856 in Jackson, Michigan, it was started as a reform party, as a progressive reform party, and stayed that way for almost 30 years.
And that's it.
That's true.
Personal privacy has been